Hey, what's up, everybody? Just gonna hang out for a minute, kick back, and kind of talk about game theory for a minute here, or at least a little bit. I'm not really gonna expound on it or anything. The idea is like setting values on behavior between people, one and another, and it's kind of let's use the idea of when you do something mean to somebody, it makes them feel bad. And it makes you feel good, but it makes you feel good in a bad way, so it's considered bad as well. When you do something nice for someone, it makes them feel good. If you see someone doing well for themselves, okay, and it makes you happy for them, then everybody wins, you know. But if you're jealous, it causes a bad emotion. So I guess I'll just stay away from the whole idea of game theory. Sorry, I just there are too many different topics to choose from, on these subjects. But I'm really interested in the ones that help us understand who we are together as people. And we're all here playing a game, okay? And I don't care who you are. If you think that everything in your life is perfect, you're playing a game. If you think that everything sucks, you're playing a game. Each one of us plays a game based on what we think is the truth, and this is kind of. I decided not to. When I decided a long time ago, actually, not to, I was going to smoke bowls in my videos anymore, unless they're videos that are about weed, But I'm going to make an exception in this case. And I'll explain why. This is one of my shortcomings, and at the same time, one of my blessings. Okay, cannabis is something that I find to be very useful in my life, and I really enjoy it. And there are millions of people out there who totally agree with me and know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Now, on the same token, there are millions of people out there who are right now, who don't understand anything about pot. And maybe a few people watching this video who are thinking, pot, oh shit, that's a drug. The instant association that we have. I've had people send me private messages telling me that I should stop using drugs because they, prevent me from getting closer to God, and God wants us clear-minded, and inebriation is a sin, and all kinds of other things like that. And it gets me to thinking, because I don't like to get defensive about it and be like, no, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. I actually reason and think it through and think, is this true? Well, a lot of people justify it by saying that, in the Bible it says that I've given you all seed-bearing plants and herbs to use, so therefore I can use cannabis, And this all goes back to rhetorics and analogies and different uses of the English language that it goes back to a different subject I'd love to tackle one day. I can't remember the name of what they call it, but it's basically the way that our linguistics are treated, and especially English, with all its slang terms. How you can take things however you want to hear them. So, there are a lot of people out there who say, oh yeah, I understand cannabis use, and a lot of people who just don't. And the complete difference in opinions can be so vast, and there's people in the middle who are kind of on the fence. But the most extreme views, we have one guy who would say that pot's the cure-all for everything, and cures all the diseases, and it's the best thing ever. I'm not that guy. I'm just a guy who understands that it's one of my faults and one of my fun, things. It's something that I do. It's one of my sacrifices that I make in order to attain something different, which is getting stoned, right? But I'm not going to pretend that I'm not that guy, because I don't have any obligation on my videos to anyone. I'm showing my true colors and who I really am. And I try to be as honest and forward as of a person as I can with everyone I meet and everywhere I go. And sometimes it gets me in trouble, but for the most part, I feel open. I feel like I've shared everything that I possibly need, and everyone's sharing with me, and nobody has to feel like they're hiding anything from anyone. I had the camera shut off on me on the last video, so I'm going to look and see how much time's left on it. Okay, more than enough, except the battery's going to die soon. That's alright. So what I'm saying here is that we play this game, okay? This game with one another, this game with life, and it gets really old. I, I see more and more through it every day, and over the years, I finally see through my game, okay? I see through my game every day, and it's the old non-attachment or attached to non-attachment thing. You know, every time you realize your follies, you see the follies in believing you had follies, and then the belief that you had follies, or the belief in believing you didn't have follies, or we go back and forth. At least those of us who think this way, I guess, do, about where our ideals come from. You know, let me tell you, one of the earliest examples that I can think of this is when I finally understood, when I was a teenager. I was, I don't know, 14, 15, and I really started to, somebody was explaining to me, like, really what karma was. I was starting to really question karma, because I'd read it in a book or something, and what is karma, you know? Do good, good will happen to you. Do bad, bad will happen to you. But that, I knew that it was more than that. One of my friends, he was this funny-ass guy. He was always the funny dude in the group. He said, if you do bad doo-doo, then poo-poo will screw you. That was his way of saying, if you do bad shit, then you're going to get screwed over. It's just, it was so funny the way, if you do bad doo-doo, then poo-poo will screw you. And that stuck with me to this day, you know, but understanding that the association that I had with karma at that time, I can look back on it now and think, wow, I didn't know shit. And I think that each one of us can do the same thing each day and look back on these little jokes about who we were. And we don't have to defend ourselves, you know, unless, you know, I know a lot of people are really proud. I've had people try to compete with me, and when I don't compete with them, they don't know what to do. I had this one guy telling me that I don't know anything. He's like, you don't know anything about anything. He says, I was doing this when you were in diapers, and I have the ultimate truth. I have the one truth, and it's the only one, and my channel's this, and my channel's that. And he says I have, you know, 20,000 subs, and he just kept going on, and he says, look at you, you only have like 50, or it was way back when, and this big long harsh message to me. And my reply was basically this: I don't give a shit. Okay? I don't give a shit. I'm not playing your game. The game for him is competition, to see he has the best of everything, the best of truth, the best of, you know, his channels, and the best of everything. And I just, he didn't know what to do when I told him that I gave him all the ammunition he needed to use against me. I'm like, you're right, dude. I'm a faulty human. In my videos, I talk about random stuff. Sometimes I say things that I probably don't mean. Most of the time, I try to be honest, but it is what it is. And get this kind of funny look, like, you know, why aren't you playing the game? Why aren't you adhering to the principles of argument? Why aren't you partaking in this debate here on this internet website for videos? So here's what I do. I find that if I have a debate with someone, it's only natural, it's human, it's what we do. We're gonna debate, and we're gonna try to be as philosophical as we possibly can about our debate. Does that mean we're any more right than the other person? Well, if we tell ourselves we are, what it comes down to is who has the most information that sounds the best. It doesn't even have to be real information. I've heard people quoting some bullshit that they heard on another video, and people believe it, and they're like, ha ha, you showed him up. The reality is the other guy just walked away because he didn't want to waste his time arguing with a guy that wants to prove his point with faulty information. But what I find with me personally is that if I'm arguing with somebody or debating someone about a subject or something, or video, whatever, and the person says something that sounds very like a legitimate argument to my comment, and I think it over, I'll go back and say, you're right. I thought it over and I looked it up and you were right. I made a mistake. And that takes, I think, sometimes more than people realize to just say, oh, well, I was wrong. And I don't understand why people can't do it more often. I always try to rub that in when I'm talking in my random shit in my videos. I always say, that I'm a faulty human. I make mistakes and I'm wrong a lot of the time. But I do the best I can. That's honesty, and I don't understand why it's so hard to be that honest. I know folks who just have never admitted they're wrong. It's not their fault. They don't realize they're doing it or not doing it, but I was that way for a long time, and I still get accused of being that way. But I'll tell you something, usually when I get accused of not giving in, it's because it's a subject that I truly believe that I'm right about, and I really believe can impact a person if they don't believe it correctly. And let me reiterate that. I really want to express that point, because that might be the most important point here. When I'm having a conversation with someone, and it turns out to be a conversation that's not worthy of argument, I'll analyze it as I go along. Then I'll usually say something along the lines of, well, it is what it is. I guess we'll just agree to disagree and have differing beliefs. If it's a subject that I believe that the person really, really needs to know the truth on, and it's something that I know that I have at least a pretty good information about, then I'll really express myself, and that's when I'll get argumentative at times to say, no, you have to understand, because this will impact your life if you know this correctly. Now, another person's point of view, from a Christian, hardcore Christian, that's kind of the standpoint they take on preaching Jesus, because they say they really have this information that you have to know, that you have to take Jesus into your heart, or else you're going to go to hell. And so they do their damnedest to preach it to as many people as they can, and you can understand where they're coming from if you have empathy, and you can see, okay, they really believe this is true, and so therefore they want to help people. Okay, it's just innocent, but to people it appears menacing. My point being that when you really, really, really try to argue your point, you have to have good information behind it. And if you don't have information, you'll tend to get more heated because you're trying to defend your point of view against somebody who has a legitimate argument against it. This happens all the time. So I listen to people, and if they have a legitimate argument against me, I accept that. And I say, okay, and I move on. It's not that hard. It's not that big of a deal. We just take it for what it is, and so what are a couple of the most important things? And this is just for me, okay? This is what I've found. This is the most important things to me. One is just that. Is to not try to prove your point over and over and over, because it's not worth it. And if you really truly believe something, then you'll find people that'll support you or work against you depending on how you shop around. People will always find what they're looking for. So do the best to keep your mind open. Don't try to support your claims unless you know that the support is legitimate, and look at everything from both angles, because you're only seeing it from your own eyes, and you have to see it from other people's to understand it. Number 2 is to realize that everything happens in accordance with the balance. That life is designed in a balancing system, and so there's always going to be bad times in order to have good times, and that's just the way it's going to be. It'll always be that way. Number 3, that there's no utopia, that it's always going to be the way it is because it's the way it is, and there may be a time when things are better, a golden age on earth. There may be a time when people do go up to a higher consciousness, and I believe that's totally legitimate idea. But but I don't believe it means that everything's going to be perfect, because perfection is based in having imperfection to compare it to, right? And it is in the eye of the beholder. So, unless you're talking about perfect squares and triangles and stuff like that, we could all get technical on the jargon. But and finally, family and friends and love is really important. It is the most important factor, I think, is finding an acceptant group of people and companions, and sharing what you know and what you learn with those around you, and likewise learning from them, and not assuming that everything you know is true and that they're just ignorant. If you see somebody who's leading the simple life, and they're doing no philosophical interest, they have no interest in anything beyond their daily farming, let's say, they just have a farm and they do their thing. And you might think, oh, they're just a simpleton, I wish they'd look more into the meaning of life, this and this and this. But maybe they have it, okay? I believe they do. That's it. That's living. Those of us in the city have to learn how to live. But, some folks who are born into it, they just have the system down. They do their thing. They're good people and live with family and friends. So, uh, family and friends and love is all key, but it's a balance between that and a little bit of conflict here and there, because that's what life's all about. So, namaste, everybody. I'm going to head on in, and hope y'all are doing great.